So you know that lie that the modern aristocracy has essentially wielded like God's staff to allow millions of migrants and illegals to raid basically every single Western country. Yeah, and what about when one of these smug liberals, with their righteous indignation, while you're trying to speak the facts, they keep interrupting you and, going on with their nonsense that's not true. You're trying to tell them the facts. Well, in this video, we get to find out what Douglas Murray does when that happens, and he's a much better man than me. He handled this absolutely brilliantly. Let's check it out.
Whether that's through so-called regular routes or the irregular routes that Charles is seems to be so angry about.
You'll find, first of all, it's Douglas.
Sorry,
and
Douglas.
And secondly, that it's not an irregular route.
Just let me finish. The irregular routes.
Good, I just wanted you to get my name right first.
Sorry, I do apologise. That was my oversight. It wasn't an intended mistake. Sorry, Douglas. Those irregular routes that people come here to, whether that's from Afghanistan or other countries, what we find is when they arrive here, they are hugely grateful for the support that this country is offering them, and they want to make a contribution. They want to do right by this country, and they simply want to rebuild their lives. I don't want to have an argument about what is true and untrue. I want to have an argument about the reality based on our work. And I'm sat here from Leeds today. We're welcoming a family that's coming in from Lebanon, from a refugee camp today. They will arrive, they will be taken to a home in York, supported by the council, and I'm certain that family will go on to make an active contribution.
Sure, well, Enver, you said you didn't want to talk about facts or what was true and what wasn't true. You said you wanted to talk about your work, but let me introduce a fact to it, which is that what you've just said, again, is incorrect. A study from University College London 10 years ago showed that over the previous 2 decades, the amount of money that migrants took out of the state in benefits was hundreds of millions of pounds less than what they paid in taxes. Sorry, hundreds of £1 million more than what they paid in taxation. It takes years for a migrant into the UK to pay back in taxation what they take out in benefits. It's very basic economics, this. The University College London study proved this. It doesn't even require a study from a university. It simply requires any observation of the facts. That the moment that you come into the UK and start using UK facilities and UK services, you are taking money out of the UK taxpayer's pot. And you may pay some of that back in. You may, in rare cases, pay all of it in. But the idea that migrants, particularly illegal migrants, arrive in the UK and become a net benefit to the UK is a fallacy. The benefits of migration of this kind, financially, accrue solely to the migrant and the family of the migrant. They do not come to the UK.
About those that get refugee status, and that is
what is the financial net benefit?
That is a specific group of individuals who are given status. They're given indefinite leave to remain for 5 years, and then they go on to be given status here.
But what is the net economic benefit to Britain? I can understand why it's in their interest, but why is it in Britain's interest?
Right.
Why is it in Britain's interest to allow those that are fleeing war and oppression to come here,
I said financially,
to rebuild their lives?
We could discuss the ethical issue all day, and I think we might disagree on it because I don't think we can give I asked you what the evidence is of the economic benefits of migrants who enter the UK illegally contributing to the UK economy.
There is none.
I'm not talking about migrants who enter the UK illegally. You're talking at cross purposes to me, Douglas. I'm talking about individuals who come here, who make a claim for refugee protection and get refugee status.
Okay.
And are here,
so what is the economic benefit to the UK
and are here as individuals with legal, legitimate rights to be here.
And in that group, what is the net economic benefit to the UK?
They make a huge benefit to the UK.
What is it?
Through a whole range. I don't have the data to hand. The data that you were referring to.
Did you guys catch the lie? Listen, man. economic migrants, illegals, people that cross the border illegally, whatever you want to call them, they benefit nobody. They don't benefit the people. They benefit the modern aristocracy, and that's it. Yet the left has brainwashed the entire West into believing that millions of immigrants crossing the border is somehow economically beneficial to the country immediately. Also, not years down the road, it's somehow immediately beneficial to us. No, it's immediately beneficial to the people that want the cheap labor, to the corporations, to the aristocracy, to the politicians that get paid to lobby this issue. This does not help the people at all. This is why you can't even listen to any leftist think tank anymore. Any leftist economist, I won't listen to a single word that comes out of their mouth and believe it as true, because I've went and listened to the smart people, the people that are actually economists, and this is a fallacy. There's no way 20 million immigrants coming into the United States could be immediately economically beneficial. It is a complete lie, and one that I'm getting very, very sick of hearing.
And indeed, today, in the front line, in the fight against COVID, if you look at people working in the NHS, there are Afghan doctors who had no choice but to get here in the back of a lorry. There are people who came from Iran fleeing oppression, who are top-level surgeons. And indeed, if you look across the arts, if you look across education, if you look across business, there are many refugees who are making an incredible contribution to this country, proud to be Britons, playing by the rules, paying their taxes and contributing to this country in an incredible way. And it's very important that as a nation, we continue 7 decades after the UN Convention to stick to that key principle that, as I say, many Conservative prime ministers have continued to stick to, which is if you come here with a case for refugee protection, you are given a fair hearing.
There are two important things to say about that. The first is just to address the fiction that the arrivals coming over by boat from France are all going to end up being surgeons, doctors, leading academics and statisticians and much more. And it's not the case. It's the fantasy of the pro-open borders lobby that everyone...
Charles, can I just say, sorry to interrupt, but I'm not advocating pro-borders. What I'm simply advocating... If you let me finish, please, Charles, come on, you've had a lot to say. What I'm advocating is the UN Convention on Refugees. Now, the UN Convention on Refugees, just let me finish, please let me make my point. I'm not interrupting you. The UN Convention on Refugees is very clear, and it upholds...
Yeah, that's correct. That's what these leftists do. He just interrupted him, and then he says, I'm not interrupting you. So I don't know how Douglas manages to just sit here like, without getting irritated. He stays calm. He's so good at this, man.
Holds the principle that if you are fleeing oppression, war, terror, and you come to this country, you can make a claim for protection. By no means am I advocating open borders, because if people don't have a legitimate claim for protection or a need for protection, absolutely they should be sent back to the country from which they have come from, and they should be supported to do that.
I'm very glad to hear you say that, but yet you're encouraging the breaking of the law and the breaking of the asylum procedures by advocating, or indeed encouraging, the illegal movement of people across the channel. And as I say, we have an asylum system. I think
the UN Convention is not breaking the law.
Please, you said a moment ago that you hadn't interrupted me, and you just have again. It's extremely deleterious for our country to be in a situation where we encourage the breaking of the law by migrants who...
Yeah, you see that smug, despicable, know-it-all face that he has on? Like, these people, they don't want to talk about facts. These radical leftists, they care not about the facts. They care about the humanitarian issue. Like, he's just... there has so small of a brain left in his head. He doesn't realize that what he's advocating for People will exploit that. Then every single migrant that comes across the border is going to be saying, yeah, we're fleeing oppression. We're fleeing a war-torn country. You don't know where they really came from. They're undocumented. Like they could just lie and say that they came from, somewhere besides where they really came from. As he said, they cross through many other countries first before they get to Britain, who are safe and not war-torn countries or not, oppressive regimes. So it's just, these people are mindless, man. They have not the ability to assess the facts of the situation. It's the same thing we're dealing with here in the United States. We got these deranged leftists who just let 12 to 30 million illegals across the border, and now they want to make them all legal. They're allowing people, Haitians, 10,000 Haitian migrants into a city of 60,000. These people worship, their religion is voodoo. They have, they want to go, they don't want to stay here. They don't want to assimilate. That's not their goal. They'll flat out tell you, no, if my country ever stops, if people stop killing each other in Haiti, I want to go back to Haiti. The very few that can speak English, the others can't speak English at all. They come from countries where they're illiterate in their language, let alone in our language. Like, it's absolute insanity, man. And if we don't start listening to people like Douglas Murray that actually care about the facts, this country is doomed. The West is doomed if we don't start listening to the smart people and stop listening to these deranged radical leftists who care about nothing but their utopia. Anyway, this is Unmainstream. Please subscribe or something. It would really help out. Thanks.
You then pretend afterwards are going to never break the law again and are all going to become doctors and surgeons. The people you talked about who come from, for instance, Afghanistan, have, as I say, walked across multiple safe countries. They are looking at Europe as a buffet that they choose from, not as a haven to try to reach. And it is exceptionally important that we as a country understand this in the modern context. You keep talking about context. Let's address the context. The context we are in now is very different from that 7 decades ago. We have not just the ability to see how the rest of the world is living through our smartphones and much more, and people across Africa have these devices, but we can go and move around much more easily than at any time previously. In the current era, there are people from across the Middle East, the Far East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, all wishing to move to Europe, and Britain is one of the countries they would like to come to. 1/3 of people in Sub-Saharan Africa polled by Gallup last year said they would like to move. They do not want to move to the Middle East, they want to move to Europe, they want to move northwards. Now, my suggestion is that in that context, Britain has to be realistic about what our capabilities are of providing a haven for the world's poor, dispossessed, and much more. I think we are a small country. We should have small ambitions about this. We cannot be the haven for anyone in the world who wishes to have a better life to come in and try to make that better life here. It's impossible, but as I say, we've been running on the polite fiction of recent decades, and I'd like us not to keep up that fiction.
Response in terms of the government's response. What do you think they should be considering?
A whole range of proposals. The first is they could follow the example the Greeks have set in the last couple of years and simply turn around the boats in the Channel. That'd be much preferable to the British Coast Guard effectively acting as a wing of the smuggling operation by picking people up a few miles into the Channel and then ferrying them to the UK. They could try to follow the Australian precedent and offshore people wishing to come, make sure that their applications are processed elsewhere than on British soil, because as everyone knows, in actual fact, once you're in, it's extremely hard for the British government to repatriate. There's all sorts of reasons why they don't do it and why it ends up not happening and being kicked down the road. And another option is to follow our colleagues and friends in Denmark, who have managed to introduce numerous restrictions in recent years to ensure that migration into Denmark has gone down by something like 9 times in the last few years. So, Australia, Greece, Denmark, these are all also very distinguished liberal democracies. They all have a fine liberal tradition, and they've also realized that they can hold on to the principle of legality and of borders, and that they can do so without anyone but a very relatively small fringe of people claiming that they are some kind of beyond the pale country.
You see, the left, they don't want to talk about the economic and political realities of a situation. They don't want to talk about assimilation. They don't want to talk about the economic factors of allowing, 20 million illegals to just cross the border randomly. All you have to do is follow the law. It is a crime to sneak into the country. And if these people knew that they were even 70% likely to get picked up and thrown in jail for a couple months, then sent back to their country, they wouldn't come. But no, the modern left has basically gave the entire world an invitation to come here under the lie, the lying pretenses that we need it. We need immigration here. Our economy would break without it. That's the type of lies they tell you. Obviously, it's all false. Is that we can't keep living under these fictions, man. We have to address the political and economic realities of these situations.